April 26th will, of course, be UFC Fight Night Garry versus Prates. Now, of course, as everyone knows, Prates was set to fight Jeff Neal. Which, first of all, I like to say one thing, and goddamn, look at the size of Prates. I don't know what made me think he was a small guy, but I thought he was small. Look at this guy. What are they feeding him? Other fighting nerds? Is that why there's only 4 of them? And yeah, he was set to fight Neal, but he pulled out. And Garry stepped in, late replacement, replacing Neal, who he himself is coming off of his decision loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, of course, there's not a lot of things to talk about, but the whole thing is that Garry felt cheated, that Magdalena was the one that got the title shot against Belal Muhammad on short notice, when it should have been Garry, because, he fought Rakhmonov to a decision, and he thought that deserved him a title shot, and other people are saying, he's an idiot, or something like that, right? We're not going to talk too much about it, but let's talk about the fight. And of course, Carlos Prates, the Nightmare, is 21-6, 16 wins by way of knockout, 3 submission wins, and 2 decisions. That's right. Hasn't been the distance in quite a bit of time. 6 losses, 2 by knockout, 3 by submission, and 1 by decision. So overall, he had a bit of everything in his defeats. Not bad. Most people in the UFC have like 5 losses and really nothing to be ashamed about. But he is coming off of his first round knockout win against Neil Magny, where he won his ranking. And one thing, I know we're not talking about the fight a lot, but Prates is ranked number 13, right? Nothing to be ashamed of. Obviously, he's just starting off in the UFC. But people are, oh my god, I hate the Fighting Nerds fan base. I don't know. I used to like the Fighting Nerds fan base, so I didn't dive too deep into it. They're like, oh man, give Prates a top 5 matchup. What? Dude's ranked number 13. He was lucky he even got a top 10 matchup. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing more, right? But Prates, of course, is coming off of his first round stoppage win against Neil Magny. He also beat the Leech by knockout in the second round. Well, he himself has only been knocked out 0 times before fighting Prates. That's right. Prates was the first one to knock out the Leech. Now, of course, very important context, the Leech was off of a 2-year layoff. So obviously, ring rust has basically taken over his gears. But then again, he knocked out a guy that hasn't been knocked out. So it's still something good, right? Speaking of knockouts, seems like he gets a lot of them. When was the last time he went decision? That is a very good question. And the last time he went decision was actually in 2019 against Joseph Lusano. Very good, ton of power. Only been the decision twice, which is good or bad depending on who you want to ask. But besides that, he is taking on the future Ian Garry. 15-1 with 7 wins by way of knockout, 1 submission win, and 7 decisions. So obviously some pop in his punches, his striking, but has gone decision 7 times. His 1 loss was by decision, and that was his last fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov. That's right, he was the first guy, Rakhmonov, the distance. Obviously a very good match. Garry did make Shavkat into, as they would say, a leg hugger, and that was kind of the case. Not to mention, Garry also almost submitted Shavkat, so, almost isn't good enough, because people are like, oh, almost, but that doesn't count. Yeah, he still was wrestling well against Shavkat, so always something to take into account. But besides that, he has beaten people like Neil Magny, so obviously, technically, Garry has beaten the better Neil Magny. He's beaten Jeff Neal, pretty good name, and Michael Venom Page. Now, of course, people didn't like that win because Garry decided to wrestle with MVP, and no one liked that, except for the people who said, but it's MMA, not a striking fight, so of course he's going to take him to the ground if he can't compete with him on the feet. Which, of course, probably and I don't think a lot of people are saying it, but they're all like, oh, but if MVP was able to catch Garry, then so can Prates. The difference is MVP can catch literally anyone. Literally all these good strikers couldn't really compete with MVP. What was it? Kevin Holland, obviously Ian Garry, Shara Bullet. So obviously, if you're going to attempt to strike with MVP, it's probably not going to end well. He's also beaten people like Daniel Rodriguez. And yeah, overall resume would have to favor Ian Garry. The experience, once again, has to favor Ian Garry. Not to mention, since this is the main event, this is a 5-round fight. and obviously for a rank 13 opponent in terms of Prates, a lot of questions will be answered that night. You know, how's his gas tank? He's only ever been decision twice, and matter of fact, I don't think he's ever been 5 rounds, and definitely not at the UFC level. So, matter of fact, the last time he went above essentially 2.5 rounds was his one decision win back in 2019. Besides that, round 2, round 1, obviously, for the most part, he has not gone that far, which is, of course, very good for Garry, who's obviously known to keep his distance, you know, more of dissecting his opponents with his leg kicks, long range attacks, which is obviously good and, you know, definitely helps taking someone like Prates into deep waters and hoping to drown him. Speaking of not going that far in fights, his losses, unfortunately, are also haven't gone that far in fights either. Round 1, 2. This man has barely seen round 3 is what I'm trying to say. So here's the thing. I like Prates. If Prates loses this fight, there's really nothing bad. I mean, he would lose to Ian Garry, one of the more technical strikers of the division. They're obviously way more experienced than he has, and obviously fighting his first ever 5-round fight. Obviously, wouldn't really hurt Prates' resume, or wouldn't really hurt Prates' momentum, to say. But they would probably clown him because he'll be the first fighting nerd to lose in the UFC. Male, anyways. But yeah, I think Ian Garry is just the more technical striker, beating the better people. Not to mention he also fought better strikers than someone like Prates. But of course, Prates has that, as they would say, game-changing power. I mean, he barely hit the top of Magny's head, and he just went out. But now, of course, Prates' striking, obviously, with the power, is something good. Because his style is kind of just continuing combos, I guess. Because, you know, he could go from kicking to striking to punching to clinch work. Obviously, some people say it's the 8-limb strategy, obviously using every part of your body in a combo, which makes sense. But here's the thing. He kind of needs them to be at the cage or at least near it so he can get that combo going. But I don't think he gets it against Garry, because Garry obviously he's known to move around the ring, obviously considered a boring opponent, which I will not dispute, to be honest. There's more entertaining fighters than he is. But I don't think Garry really lets him plant his feet to start any of those combos. Because, look, he has some good striking. No one's saying that he doesn't. But it's just, they're not against any high-level striker, you know. This is the first time he's fighting someone that equals him in his striking or even is better than him at striking. So, obviously, this will be an interesting thing. Not to mention, Garry will not hesitate to take him to the floor, which obviously he's done the MVP. So, obviously, if he starts losing on the feet, he's probably going to start wrestling. But then again, Prates does have a camp full of nice submission wrestlers. So obviously, Prates will not be absolutely overwhelmed on the ground. But I don't know. I don't know who it favors in that fight. But maybe it favors Garry more for just controlling, not really going for any submissions. But then again, once again, Magny kind of lunged in, kind of just dove into that shot. So obviously it added a lot more power to it. But overall, Garry has fought in the better strikers, the better opponents overall, has experience in a 5-round fight, obviously fighting the stoppage artist Boogeyman in Shavkat, which of course, that gives a lot of confidence to someone like Garry. He's already fought someone that has stopped every opponent he has faced. And now he's facing Prates, who's only ever gone decision twice. So it gives Garry a lot more confidence. And I just think Garry just dissects Prates from at a distance. I mean, Prates is good, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't fought anyone near the level of Garry, especially in striking. So, Prates can get something done. I just hardly doubt it ever happens. I mean, he does have that game-changing power, but like they say, what's the point of power if you can't land it? And I don't think he lands really anything big against Garry, but, you know, you never know. Garry falls asleep on the wheel and gets knocked out. You never know. Prates does have that type of power. But besides that, yeah, I don't think it's that much of a controversial opinion to think that Garry just utterly dissects Prates at a distance. And I'm going to say, I think he stops Prates. I think he takes him into deep waters in the 4th round, maybe even the 5th round, and stops Prates. I mean, we haven't really seen him past round 3, or even round 2. We haven't seen him get past round 2 in a long time, so you never know. But besides that, yeah, I got Ian Garry most likely stopping Carlos Prates in the 4th or 5th round. I guess keeping him and obviously getting him back into the winning column. But besides that, who do you think wins this main event between Ian Garry and Carlos Prates? Do you think Prates wins? I would like to know how. No offense, but I really can't see a way that Prates can win. His striking's good. Nowhere near the level of Gary's, though. But yeah, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear, and I'll catch you in the next one.